Hello and welcome to the Arts Are Education Talk It Up podcast, where we talk to national, state, and local leaders who are working to make arts education part of every student's life. I'm Jim Palmerini, your host. This podcast is part of our series Meet NCAS, in which I talk to representatives of the member organization of the National Coalition for Art Standards, that's ARE sponsoring network. NCAS is a collaboration of 8 national arts and arts education organizations who actively work to ensure quality standards-based arts education opportunities for every student. So over the past few months, I've been talking to their leadership about the organizations themselves and their perspective about the foundation's focus of NCAS, that is K-12 arts education standards and their importance to their members and to the field. Today, we are talking to Alexis Truitt, Executive Director of the American Alliance for Theater and Education. Welcome, Alexis.
Thanks, Jim. It's great to be here.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and there you are, and there I am. So thanks again for being here. Let's get started with our conversation, and that is, tell me about AATE, a little bit of its history and its mission and its goals.
Great, absolutely. So the American Alliance for Theater and Education serves and inspires a growing collective of theater artists, educators, and scholars committed to transforming young people and communities through the theater arts. AATE is a grassroots organization that has a wide cross-section of what theater and education means. Our national membership consists of playwrights, teachers, researchers, and arts education departments in professional theaters, just to name a few. So many more layers to who we are, being very broad cross-section, as I said, with people who are playwrights, people who are youth theater practitioners, people who work in research in college and university level education. So it's really great to have that kind of holistic look on what theater and education is.
Yeah, I've always found it really interesting how rich and varied the membership of AATE is, because you have folks working at the higher education level doing research. You have this really strong core of theater artists, teaching artists that work in professional children's theaters and in schools. And to me, that creates this really amazing web and network that is so strong in its delivery of theater education to students throughout the country. So I love that. All right. So, and speaking of that, let's talk about, why do you think theater education standards are important to K-12 arts education?
Oh, absolutely. So in essence, the standards display a student's growth in the subject and assist in aligning tools for educators across the country, and thus providing a common benchmark by age and artistic focus, in this case, theater for us, which allows us to assess development and understanding of our student populations more easily. So curriculum has existed, standards have existed in curriculum forever, generally kind of looking at the STEM aspect of things. So these being very specific to the theater subjects is really, I feel like, important, so that we can really hone in on the growth that is happening through the arts, since we know it's so important to learning as a whole. Anyway,
so I want to just talk a little bit about, the teaching artists that are so core to AATE's membership and its work. How do you think those standards impact them in particularly, as opposed to just a classroom teacher?
That is a great question. And so I did, because we've spoken about the cross-section that is AATE, I did reach out to our membership, some of our members in particular, just to see how they're utilizing them.
Yeah.
And so it was really fascinating to find out that, of course, some people are using the standards as the main base of benchmarking, but a lot of them are using them in tandem with their state curricula to bolster what they're doing. So I feel like that's probably, for our teaching artist core, that's probably the same. They're utilizing them as they can within their state, because it is definitely a state by state basis. And so I was able to, with being a national organization, kind of get a small swath of what's happening across the US by asking these particular people.
Do you think the teaching artists, it helps the teaching artists work more collaboratively and effectively with classroom teachers as well?
Oh, absolutely. As long as like those standards have been adopted, or some form of standards have been adopted within that state, then yes, I think that that's what the curriculum, from what I'm hearing from everyone, is based on. That's how it's built, is with the standards baked in. So therefore, yes, it would add to or encourage more collaboration and a better through line for what those students are currently working on.
And learning, yeah. So, I'm thinking about when we were building the standards, I know you probably remember this, the concern about K through 5 or K through 3 standards, when there are really a pretty limited number of classroom educators working in theater in schools, at least in a curricular way. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think those early year standards have helped maybe move the lever a little bit around making theater actually available for those elementary school students? Because we know the level of access is pretty low.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I mean, and it continues to be, but I do agree. I think there is definitely more of a presence in an elementary school situation. And I definitely think the standards had a big part of that. Yeah, it is unfortunate because as I referenced, the importance of art, but especially theater on other academics,
Yeah.
is so crucial. And for us to eliminate that continually, it's such a frustration for the diverse learners that we have out there. So,
And then looking at the other end, because you have higher education members and students, I think in pre-professional training programs, has that made a difference in terms of AATE's outreach to students who are training to become theater educators as well?
yeah, I don't know if it's affected our personal outreach, but kind of our member connection, if you will.
Yeah.
Their outreach to their students, because as you said, we do have a large amount of universities as part of our membership, and they are utilizing the standards in their teaching to their students. So most of their students have to build lesson plans or go through curriculum development, and they are required to use the national standards to do that.
Yeah, that's really interesting that it becomes a basis for building college curriculum as well. And then to prepare those students to then enter the classroom with that foundational standards base, which I would say 20 years ago they didn't necessarily have. So I think that's a huge component. So, and again, talking about AATE members specifically in the field, and in some ways we've answered this question, but let's ask it anyway. How do you think those theater standards have really impacted your members and the field? I guess, let me refine that question. We talk a lot about the professionalism of our educators, almost as an advocacy tool that, we have these rigorous standards that address knowledge and skills, and therefore, does that help define the professionalism of the people who actually teach these students as well? Does that sort of make sense as a question?
Can you say it one
Basically,
more time?
as the standards as an advocacy tool.
Yeah. Okay.
In other words, that not the person at the back of the room who raises their hand and said, "Yeah, I'll direct the play. What do you teach? Trigonometry." So does that make a difference to have those standards for those teachers?
Yeah, no, as you said, I think we did touch on it, but absolutely. I think it makes a big difference to have something to point to specifically to advocate and bolster the importance of the arts, theater in our case, to the curriculum and the learning of the students. I think without it, it's just people saying it's important, and nobody truly understands the level that it is important.
Here's a wrap-up question.
Okay.
What do you say to a theater educator or teaching artist who says, I don't use the standards, or I would have to totally revise my curriculum or my lesson in order to incorporate these standards? What do you say to them about, the value of standards to help them do their job better and therefore to help students learn, I think? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And probably when I was a teaching artist, I'm just going to be a little self-reflective here.
That's
When
okay.
I was a teaching artist a million years ago, I would have really liked to have something like the standards, because I came into the world of teaching artistry with not that background, and without kind of like a clear indicator of what people were to be learning at whatever level they were. I just kind of taught what I felt was appropriate, which may or may not have been, but having the guidelines would have made it much more effective for me, much more beneficial for the students. And so I think I would basically relay that information to anyone who is a little hesitant to adopt them in any way.
Yeah, I guess what in some ways what we're saying is that the standards are kind of a reflective tool, and what I've found again and again is teachers who are anxious is that, you probably are already meeting a lot of these standards. They can maybe help you refine and update what you're already doing to make you even better and your students to even learn more. So
absolutely, yes.
All right. And at that, I think that's a wrap. Alexis, thank you so much for being here and for all of the great work that AATE does to ensure opportunities for our students and our teachers in theater. I'm a theater guy, so I feel strongly about that. All right.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jim. This has been great.
Well, I'm gonna do the awkward business of resharing my screen. All right. If you want to learn more about the National Coalition for Core Standards, you should visit www.nationalartstandards.org, and you'll find lots of good information and helpful guidance and the standards themselves across 5 arts areas. And yes, if you want to learn more about the American Alliance for Theater and Education, we just scratched the surface here today with Alexis. Visit their amazing website at www.aate.com. And one final plug for AATE coming up. Their really extraordinary conference. And I'm going to say I've been to their conferences and they're really great. They have so many wonderful teaching artists there in Seattle. Correct, Alexis? Yeah. All right. Yes. September. No, I'm sorry. July 27th through 29th in Seattle. Be there or be square. So Alexis, thank you so much again. And signing off, and see you the next time.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.